Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes, the Chief Sales Sergeant of Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Here at Bulletproof Selling, our mission and our mantra is that hope is not a sales strategy. And so we are here with you to bring guests on to help you remove hope from any aspect of how it is that you sell. And I say any aspect because you would be surprised at the places where hope enters sales strategy. It could be when you're sourcing your leads. It could be when you're thinking about who is it that I really sell to best? Who makes a good client? All the way to the tail end of the sales cycle. You've closed the deal. You're trying to generate referrals. You're trying to get that upsell going on, trying to cross-sell. Hope enters this sales cycle there too. So for the last couple of years, we've been here at Bulletproof Selling to help salespeople around the world remove hope from any aspect of sales that it could creep into. And over the course of that time, we've been able to have on best-selling authors, Hall of Fame speakers, folks that are out there managing sales teams, and of course, folks that are on the front lines helping salespeople manage their sales teams better. My commitment to you is that on every single one of these episodes, we're going to build a sales system with our guests, a sales system that will help you remove hope by allowing you to take a process and place it inside your pipeline, inside how you sell. And over the course of these last few years, we've been able to do that with a lot of pretty cool guests. Some of my favorites, of course, are my fellow military veterans. As a sergeant in the Marine Corps, I was able to travel around the world on battlefields, watching how these high-performing teams removed hope from their operations. That's why we get to take those same processes and place them into sales teams today, because sales is on the front line of business. If you're in sales, you are on the battlefield of business. And if you're getting prepared to go on a battlefield, there's a particular group of people in the military. Their job is to get troops ready, not just for the battlefield, but for military culture in general. And I'm super happy to have our guest on today because this fellow was actually a Marine Corps drill instructor. If any of you have seen the movie Full Metal Jacket, Arlie Ermy in the big flat hat, yelling in the recruit's face, it's a real thing, ladies and gentlemen. It happens. And our guest today did that job in the Marine Corps. He's a kinder, gentler version of himself now, that I can promise you. You've gotten to speak with him a few times. Really, really intelligent man. A lot to give to us in the field of sales. But I want you to keep in mind, this guy, he knows how to knife hand somebody with the best of them. And what we're going to talk about today is an issue that I see come up so often in sales, because it takes a lot of time for us to develop that trusting relationship, to establish rapport, to link the things that we sell, the products and services that we have, as solutions for our customers and our clients' businesses and their lives. All that time is spent. And then when the service is done being delivered, when the customer or client has a receipt of the product, most salespeople, believe it or not, are on to the next deal. They leave all of the money and all of the value that they could still be providing to that customer on the table. We're going to talk today about how to turn that around. So without further ado, because we got some fun stories to share, it's my pleasure to welcome to the show VP of Sales for Skyway Acquisition, Mr. Troy Small. Troy, welcome, sir, to Bulletproof Selling.
Thank you, Sean. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So obviously, kinder, gentler version of yourself. I don't want you to blow out your mic with, doing the drill instructor thing that you learned how to do so well. But tell us a little bit about your history in the Marine Corps. Troy and I were actually at Parris Island at the same time, but he was a drill instructor for the same series of recruits that I was part of. So Troy probably knife-handed me once or twice, at least from a distance. Talk to us about your Marine Corps career, sir, and what you get to do now leading sales teams.
Yeah, sure thing, Sean. I served 20 years in the Marine Corps. I went to boot camp in 1989. And after recruit training, I was a machine gunner. I shot the 50 caliber machine gun and the Mark 19. And shortly after boot camp, I went over to Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So did that machine gunner for 4 years. And after Desert Shield, Desert Storm, they had cutbacks. So I had to either change jobs or get out of the Marine Corps. I did supply administration for 1 year. And while I was in supply, I learned about the purchasing and contracting field. And at that time, you had to be in supply for a year. So I made a decision that I was change jobs. And from basically year 5 through year 20, I was a purchasing and contracting specialist, ultimately becoming a contracting officer. As you mentioned, I served as a drill instructor. I was a drill instructor from 2000 to 2003. So I took a break from business and contracting to go and train nasty recruits. And I tell you, it was the epitome of my career. It was totally awesome. Fast forward, I went back to the contracting field. The Marine Corps caught me one last deployment, and I deployed to Fallujah, Iraq, for Operation Iraqi Freedom. I was in Fallujah for 13 months. Also in Al Assad, I ran the regional contracting center for Fallujah. Once retired in 2009, worked in corporate for 3 years, helping with contract management. I flipped badges and worked for the Navy for 6 or 7 years as a Navy program manager down in San Diego. And, you know, at that point, around 2017, I started my own business. I figured it all out, and I resigned from my job, my career there in 2018. And right around the same time is when I learned about Skyway. I went through their intake process in the fall of 2017, and came aboard in March of 2018 is when I came aboard with Skyway as a government contracting consultant. Later on that year, we had some inconsistency in our sales, and we had someone that was aboard. They had left, and so we needed to rebuild our sales team. And so our president decided to build it from within. So we chose consultants from our company to serve on the sales team, and that was in the autumn of 2018. And that's actually when my official sales career began. Was in the fall of 2018. I guess I did well, and I became the VP of sales in January of 2021 or so, a couple of years ago. And here we are today, and we're doing very well serving our clients and bringing on more clients to help.
Talk to us a little bit about the type of consulting work that you do. Who do you serve? How do you serve them?
Yeah, sure. We Skyway Acquisition, we help small businesses and government contractors. We help companies who are competing for contracts and trying to do business with the federal government. We provide consulting services, we provide training and professional development services as well.
And for the contracting world, I mean, I know for everything I've heard from dealing business with the government, it's a long process. You've got to learn a lot. You've got to establish all the right credentials, get your RFP in, network with the people that are making the deals. So there's a lot that goes into landing one of these government contracts. But I'm curious, with the salespeople that you work with, where does hope really enter the picture for them? Is it in the client acquisition stage, or does it come with trying to figure out how do we get those clients to renew with us? Because obviously it's a lot easier to convert an existing client to more business than it is to get a new one. Where does hope enter the picture for your folks?
Yeah, you know, a lot of times I see hope in where the individual is hoping that the client will renew. So to your point, I mean, the easiest and best client to get, well, I don't say easy, but typically the best client to convert is a current client, right? They've already decided that they like you. They already trusted you. They already determined that what you said was valid to them. So they trusted you one time. So you have a higher likelihood of getting them to trust you again, as long as you're serving them and providing that product or service that you said that you would provide, you know, in the sales calls.
And the providing of the product or service, it looks different for each business. Are your salespeople responsible in some small part or some large part for delivering the service that they're selling, or do you hand off your customers to that kind of a delivery mechanism within the company?
Very interesting. We have two of our salespeople, well, actually three, actually are on the delivery team as well. However, we have a team, Skyway Acquisition, we have a team of 13 former contracting officers and a business development expert. So 13 former KOs, which serves as consultants, and an industry business specialist that assists as well. So we have a strong bench to send work to. The challenge becomes or what I like to express upon my salespeople is that it is very important that customer delivery, like the services team, they have to understand what we're doing on the sales team. What are we doing at the tip of the spear? What are we telling the prospects that we are speaking to? Because what we're telling them on that sales call, on that prospect call, is most likely going to result in a consulting call. And so we just got to make sure that the entire team, from the sales team, which is customer discovery, onboarding, through customer service and delivery, and then the re-up, right? Because our sales consultants are the ones that will know if the project is going well. So then it will be incumbent upon that salesperson to tell, the consultant to tell the salesperson, hey, we may have a new deal here because they like this project. So maybe we can give them a long-term deal.
It's a lot of salespeople that I get to speak with, and even guests on this show. They talk about the disconnect between marketing and sales, so between lead generation and sales. And what I'm hearing from you is there's either a disconnect or a lot of room for growth in a lot of companies between sales and delivery in order to generate that follow-on business as well. So we talk about, organizations communicating well. The military is a great example of this when it's done well. And then I've got folks in the rear talking to the folks in supply and support, talking to the folks on the front line. Everybody's communicating to get what we need to accomplish the mission. When that communication breaks down, you and I have seen it firsthand how ugly that can get. So it's the same thing on a sales team. So I'm curious then, if I'm in sales for your company, for a similar company, I've made the initial deal. Now we're up for that renewal period. Am I looking at a one-to-one exchange there? They signed on for X amount of dollars, and I'm going to get X amount of dollars for that renewal, or does it become multiples because now they know, like, and trust me? They're willing to sign on for the larger deal. They're willing to buy more from the company. How much more am I eligible to actually sell if I'm getting that recurring revenue model going in your industry?
Oh, in our industry, it becomes more. It may be multiples of more, simply because the client, depending on where they're starting at and their current knowledge base, they may have a very low level of understanding of the federal space. However, they may have a great amount of potential in being successful. But the only reason they're not successful is because they don't have the necessary expertise or the necessary guidance to show them how to be successful in doing business with the government. So what we do, we usually deal with what's called a complex sale. So it's not so easy as speaking to one person one time and then they agree and we go off happy together. Usually I have to sell ourselves technically to help them to determine that, yes, we have the juice, we have the knowledge, we have the skill sets to do what we say we can do. And then I have to do the business sale. Now we got to agree on what it costs and what the price looks like and how long. So 2 different sales that usually involves 2 or 3 or 4 or sometimes 6 different people, depending on how big the organization is. So understanding that in our marketplace, that we deal with a complex sale, what we typically try to do is only sell our clients exactly what they need when they need it. So if a client comes to me and they want to get, as an example, they want help to respond to a phase 2 SBIR, which is a distinct individual project. We can help them with that project, but I know that they have 6 or 7 contracts, right? I don't try to sell them the SBIR project and contract management and, we can help you with everything. I only sell them what they want when they want it, because I know as a salesperson that if my delivery team does like they always do, which is a outstanding job, that client's going to be happy. And they're going to come back to me and say, hey, Troy, you were right, man. I love those folks. I want more. Like, how can we establish a longer term relationship, right? Because now they see that, okay, we have this coming up on the horizon. And this Skyway team's pretty good. I see now how they can help us with that future thing by how they helped us with this current thing. And so that's kind of how I express it to our team and how we approach sales in our space.
And this is something that I think could benefit a lot of salespeople. It's a rare industry where we don't have the opportunity to get that recurring revenue model going. And it might look like a monthly subscription or an annual renewal. It might look like additional projects. It might look like additional products. So wherever you sit in the sales world, the chances are you could convert more of your existing customers into follow-on business. So I work with a lot of industries where there's a lot of support that they could provide for the products that they sell. And that support is sometimes worth more than the initial purchase of the product, because it could last 10, 20, 30 years, depending on the life cycle of the product. So let's build a system around this, Troy, that could help a lot of salespeople better get that recurring revenue, better get that after sale, better get that follow-on sale, so that your salespeople and a lot of folks across the world of sales could remove hope from how they deliver, not just the first sale, but every sale after that to the same customer. So you remember in the military, we had an acronym for just about everything. If we didn't have an acronym, we would invent it, because it was just, what we did. Well, here in sales, every system that we build trims hope away from a sales strategy, just like every system we have on the battlefield trimmed hope away from our mission plan. So here at Bulletproof Selling, we use this acronym TRIM every time we build a new system. So the T in TRIM for the system we're going to build to get more recurring revenue and better upsell, better downsell, better cross-sell after the initial sale is made, the T stands for trigger. I want to know when to trigger this system. So just like when we were in boot camp, I'll try to think of a good example here. The fire watch starts pounding on the wall, and for all the recruits that are still sleeping at 4:30 in the morning, this triggers a variety of actions that we have to take before the lights even come on. And I know you know this because you train people in how to do it. So it's the same way right here in sales.
Absolutely.
What is the trigger element for getting ready for a good recurring revenue model with a customer? Does it happen when we're selling that first sale to put the right things in place? Does it happen before the first sale is made, when we're talking with our delivery team and letting them know about the things they need to look out for? Where should I trigger this system, Troy?
This system is actually triggered in the leadership room. It is triggered before the salesperson is even talking to someone, because it's a system. It has to be in place so that the salesperson knows the steps. So I'm very big on understanding what I have to do. By having a system, you can almost be on autopilot, just like in the Marines, right? There's certain systems. When you go on patrol, there's certain things you just do because it's ingrained in you. It's autopilot. Your body just does it. When dealing with sales and keeping clients within the company or having recurring revenue and having them renew, that system is very key, and execution of the system is key, meaning that you have to have a customer journey. So our customer journey is very defined at Skyway. As a matter of fact, we use flywheels. We use a lot of governance in our company. We have like ethos, non-negotiables, laws of the complex sale. We have a lot of words and concepts that keep our mental space blocked in where we want it. And so I would say that having an understanding that once I sell something to a client, then my operations team is going to kick in to do onboarding. And then once they're onboarded, they're going to push that client to the service delivery team. And then the service delivery team is going to follow up with myself in sales and the op team to let us know how the project is going. Because if the project is going well, as a salesperson, I keyed in on the future work that they need. So I sold the current project, but as a good salesperson, I was listening, and I noted that after this one, we could potentially help them with this project and maybe that project as well. So generally speaking, I already am aware of what I may want to try to help support them with next. And therein lies the recurring revenue and them renewing, because you just keep providing them with value and good service, and they're happy. Happy clients stay. And so within Skyway, we try to have our clients to be delighted, cared for, and confident. If our clients are delighted, cared for, and confident, we know that they're happy. If they're happy, we know that they're either going to stay or they're going to grow with us. And both are good. They're going to stay where they're at. Yeah, both are good outcomes.
So I've got then the trigger element, starting with the leadership team and having a clearly defined customer journey. And which what we're talking about here, Troy, it sounds like, is having a very clear handoff and a list of things that need to be handed off when I move from sales to onboarding to delivery. Because if I don't have those clear handoffs and the different parties aren't aware of what information they should be communicating, then there's a lot of opportunity for hope to enter the picture in that handoff, which could result in a very unhappy client that feels like they're just being, shuffled from one department to another with no real care thought about ahead of time. So if I've got my trigger element in place, the R in trim is making this a repeatable process. So here's where we get to dig into the tactics a little bit. There could be a lot of steps to this, but I like to couch these in like 4 or 5 big steps, because you remember in the infantry, you give somebody more than 4 steps, you can count on them just losing track of everything after step number 4. So we like to keep it very simple right out of the gate. What are the few things that I really need to be paying attention to doing repeatedly in order to set myself up best for recurring revenue? Is it to check in with the client throughout the sales delivery? Is it to make sure I've got my checklist for handoff and that that's being consistently used throughout the sales delivery process? What are some things that I can begin doing to really take care of that customer so when it comes time for renewal, they're ready to go with me?
That's interesting. I think a little different, Sean. And so one of the things I'm going to say is that one is preparation. So when you prepare for the sales call, you're doing research on that company. You're going to learn some facts, some data points that may not matter on the call, but you have them, right? You captured them because you were doing your research. You spent 5, 10, 15 minutes before the call. Each call you have, new information comes up. A good salesperson is going to highlight key data points that could result in the upsell. So that's one is preparation and planning. You have to prepare for each call. The second thing is a good note taking. So if you're on the call and you're not taking notes, then you're missing key information, because people tell us what they want on the calls. They tell us what they want. They tell us what they don't want. They tell us how to sell them more. They tell them how not to sell them. And there's a lot of information that comes out if we just pay attention. And then I think the other one would be follow up or maybe reconciliation, if you will. Reconciliation my notes with what the current state is of that client. What changed? What changed from when I first spoke with them to 45 days later, after we've spent 5, 10, 15 hours with them? We've gotten additional information. The world has changed. The government shut down now. I think like a lot of stuff can happen in 30 days. So you have to consistently reconcile your information, because if you're using bad information, who knows where you're at in the deal, right? So you got to make sure your information is up to date. And so that was 3. And I think the fourth would be routine dialogue within the team. The left hand needs to know what the right hand is doing, and vice versa. It's almost like a need to know. We have, in Skyway, we kind of over communicate. We have this thing about over communication. I'm not a big fan of it personally, but I'm a Marine, man. So we're not, but for our team, it works. It does work. So we over communicate because we're a small enough group, and size matters, but we have we're about 13 to 15 strong, right, with our support. And so that's a very agile group to where we can communicate often without, it being a problem. And so those would be my 4 suggestions for the R.
And there's only one that I want to dig into a little more, and that's that dialogue with the team. Because obviously I want to dialogue well when we hand that client off to delivery, but I also want that team dialoguing with me as a salesperson throughout the delivery of that service. So when it comes time for renewal discussions, I'm better teed up. It's not checking in and be like, hey, we haven't talked through the entirety of your experience with us. How are things going? And would you like to spend more money? Like that's a bad conversation. So how should I be ensuring that the dialogue with the team continues until we're ready to have that renewal discussion?
So one of the things that I do, and this kind of starts before, is sometimes I have the consultant that it will provide the service to the client. Sometimes I have them on the sales call with me, because sometimes I have them come on so that they can ROM out the project. And I want them to show a little bit of their expertise to the prospect, right? Maybe it's one of those calls where I just need a little extra hand. So I'll have them do that. Whether I have them on the call or not, like if I'm talking to a client, I tell the potential consultants, hey, this is what's coming aboard. This is what they need. I then tell them they may also need this. So listen out for that, right? And so then after the project, I have a hot wash with that consultant, and I ask them, hey, how was the project? How did it go in your eyes? Did you think it was great? Do you think they loved us? Do they think they hate us? Like, and their clients would tell me, and they're like, sometimes, oh yeah, this happened. I don't know. I'm like, don't worry about that. That's no big deal. Right. And then other things like, okay, no worry. We'll make it not a big deal. But usually it's everything went well. And so I think that follow up with the consultants and continuous dialogue when and whenever you think you might need it, because deals are fluid. So it can't be every, Tuesday at 3, because you may get 5 deals in 1 week. So now you have to speak to them much more sooner.
Mm-hmm. Love it. So we've got those kind of solid steps to walk through in the repeatable element. And now the iron trim is where I make sure that this system, this process that we're building is improvable over time. The way that we fought in Desert Storm, we learned a lot from it so that we could improve. And when you went back to Fallujah, and when I was there as well, we were learning things that we, made the mistakes in Desert Storm in making, so we didn't make them again. I'd like to do the same thing for this system. What should I be doing every quarter, every year, however often you recommend that should be, to make sure that this thing is staying up to date as our client situation changes? And you mentioned the government shutting down. That's going to change the way that you might execute this system. As our services and our products change, what do I need to do to make sure this is staying up to date with our customer needs so that we're still delivering at a high level and they want to renew with us?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at the high level, at the very least, you need to be discussing your processes and what happened on certain deals at least once a year. I mean, like an annual stand down, right? But we have weekly sales meetings. So at any given time, any of our sales persons can bring up a topic for discussion on the agenda, and that's where we can hammer out, what happened on certain deals. As a matter of fact, we do a deal review in our sales meeting. Like, so anyone can specifically talk about any particular deal that they want to do. One other thing I want to share is something that we use. I told Skyway, we're really big on just having certain words or pictures to represent what it is that we want. But something that we follow is an acronym that we use. It's called FAL DEMOT, which means figure out what works best and do more of that.
Yeah.
And so through FAL DEMOT, that concept that we go by, we can see like, we tried that didn't work. Don't do that again. And then there's other cases like we've recently had like 2, 3, or 4, or 5 different types of FAL DEMOT type things where it's like, man, that actually worked. Okay, we're doing that now. Like this is the new way that we're doing stuff.
Yeah.
Like this is the new edict, right? Like until something changes, like this is how we're going to do it. So I think frequent review of your process, frequent review of the L's. So our losses are not losses, they're learns. So anytime something goes wrong, my first question is, what was I supposed to learn from this? So that when I see it again, I capitalize and the same thing doesn't happen, which just happened.
That's really smart. Losses can be learns if we take the time to ask why. This is something that we learned really well in the military, because if we didn't ask the question, why did that happen? Why did that mission go south? Or why did we succeed? Why did we pull that together with less casualties than we were expecting? We needed to capture our wins so we could replicate them and eliminate our losses because the stakes were so high. So that's something that's great you're bringing to your team. So we've got the trigger, repeatable, and provable. And now the M in trim, the final element of this is to measure it. So I want to know if I'm taking the time to really map this out, to maybe communicate more with my delivery team than I have been in the past, so we're better prepared for that follow-on business. I want to know, is this better than what I was doing before by just winging it, or calling the client up at the end of 90 days and say, hey, you're ready to do that again, with no other information, no other communication. What things should I be measuring along the way? Instead of, we can absolutely measure the renewal rate. That's a great kind of lagging metric to capture. But what are the things on the leading side I can begin to pay attention to measure so that I know more predictably what kind of follow-on business I'm likely to get?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, metrics, number one. I'm just going to say the data. The data tells you everything you need to know. So data points is really key. Every sales meeting we have, and each of our weekly sales team and our weekly leadership team we're reviewing metrics and data points that we've created for ourselves. What's key is that we don't just use standard. We don't just use we don't go on Google and say, what metrics did you use? Like, we've actually created internal metrics based on what we see. And to the point, like, we measure how many inbounds we get in a month. We measure how many consulting hours we perform in a month across all clients. And if any given client is, more than another, we try to figure out why did the number go up? Oh, is it because of a big project, or are we just incrementally doing more work, right? Why did the number go down? Oh, well, because we had a big project and now it's no more. So we look at that data, and basically measuring it can give you an understanding of what to do more of, file them out, or what to do more of and what to do less of. If the numbers come up yellow or red, it gives us more focus on those items, meaning that, hey, inbound leads are down. Okay, if they're down for 2 weeks in a row, then we need to start paying attention. And now we need to go out and do some outbounding. Now, maybe I need to create an ad. Now, maybe be more vocal on social media, right? Draw some attention to try to get people to start to reach out, because they've seen us, right? So that would be my response to that.
And I'm curious then, you mentioned tracking time with clients. This is a really powerful one for salespeople, because if I look at and for a lot of sales models, it's not about time with clients, but it might be about engagement, right? How many touches have I had with that client? We might be tracking the length of every touch, or length of every delivery interaction. But I'm curious to get your insight into this. If I'm looking at the amount of engagement I've had with a client over the course of time, 90 days, however long that client cycle is going to run, should I be looking at that and then asking about my renewal rates? Because I may discover that the more time I spend with a client, the higher the renewal rate is. And then I might want to ask, well, why is that? Were they just, they felt more handled, more taken care of? Or did we do something with that client that was above and beyond as a part of that? Because obviously we don't want to be in a model where we're just spending all of our time with one client, because that limits scale. So I'm curious how you would tell a salesperson to look at that, where I'm looking at, okay, I did my part on sales. We then turn them over to delivery, however that might look in my business model. But now, what do I want to examine as far as the amount of time we've spent with that client, or the engagement we've had with that client, as opposed to the renewal rate? What metrics would I pull out of that?
Yeah, there's two sides there. There's the before the deal closes side, right? Like in this, when you're speaking to them as a prospect, like, how many calls are we doing? Like, and are these calls beneficial? We have a system there where, once again, we know we're in a complex sale. And so we already have an understanding that we're trying to figure out, is there more than one person that makes the decision? Is the person I'm talking to even a decision maker? Or are they my champion? Because they still could be if they're my champion, great. We go arm in arm and we try to sell this together to their side and our side. So we do look at how much time we spend on the prospect side, and we try to shrink that down, because obviously if I'm prospecting, but they don't close, I don't want to say it's lost time, but it kind of sort of is. On the other side, like, once they do become a client, as far as the challenge here is that in our space, we have different projects. We may have a client that has, 15 contracts, and they want contract management, and that's all they want. And we do, 10 to 15 hours a month for them. We may have another client that is doing a proposal response, and they only want one project. So they just want to do this project, and maybe it's 150 hours. And so they pay that for that project. We do 150 hours of proposal support, and that's it. They go away. Now, in that example, though, in my mind, that could be a follow-on client, because if they win, I'm going to call them and say, hey, you need contract management? Because now you have a contract now. So in our space, that's how we kind of look at it. It's not as traditional as some of the other markets. We're pretty niche. And so, and I think I'll say this, is that you have to understand your market. And, so to the questions that you're asking, measuring and tracking and figuring out how, was that a good deal to follow up on? You have to understand how your market behaves. It took us quite a while to really figure out how our market behaves, or how best to operate within it or engage our market, but we're starting to really hone in on it. But it takes time. And I think the point is that you have to have systems and models in place, and you have to be willing to review them often and change them when the data and the information tells you that something needs to be changed. You can't be afraid to make a change.
And you mentioned something so vital there. I want to reiterate it for all the listeners: is that to win more sales, measure how much you help your clients win. For your model, that looks like how many contracts did you help them gain. For another salesperson, it might be, what impact did the product or service that I sell make on this person's business? Because if I can tie it back to, we helped you double your bottom line, or saved you 40 hours a week from manpower expenses, that's a win. And you can absolutely leverage that to that follow-on sale. So great end-to-end system for making sure that the sale doesn't end with you getting that signed proposal or that quote and getting issued your check, that you continue to track these things to make sure you're not only selling more, but serving more. Great mindset. And I knew I'd get that from another Marine. So Troy, where do we find out more about you, about your company? Folks are interested in getting in touch with you. How do they do that?
Yeah, you can email me at troy.small@skywayacq.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn on just Troy A. Small. Google me and I'll pop up, or search for me, I guess. And our website is skywayacq.com. And once again, if you're in the government contracting space and you're looking for consulting support, training, if you're actually a government person, like maybe you're a military program manager or contract specialist, and you need some professional development, hit us up. This is what we do. We're here to support. We love helping our clients. As I always say, we geek out on contracting, but I guess I need to say I geek out on sales too, now that I'm on the Bulletproof Selling podcast.
Oh, no doubt you geek out on sales, sir. I knew you would. Well, for all of the watchers out there on the YouTube channel, make sure you're hitting subscribe. For the podcast listeners, whether you're coming to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or anywhere else that podcasts can be found, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're telling salespeople with a review that hope doesn't have to be part of their strategy anymore. Troy, thanks for your service to our country. Thanks for training the whole round of recruits that I was part of to give another great experience in the Marine Corps. And thank you so much for serving salespeople today, sir. Let's get out there and make selling bulletproof.
Thank you as well, Sean. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.